Our Gents, this is Noah from Noah's Archetypes, and today we'll be looking at a new card coming out of Phantom Rage called Arcana Reading. This is a normal spell with the following effect. Toss a coin and apply one of these effects depending on the result, or if Light Barrier is in your field zone, choose one to apply without tossing a coin. Heads, add one card with a coin tossing effect from your deck to your hand except Arcana Reading. Tails, your opponent chooses one card in their deck to add to their hand. You can banish this card from your graveyard immediately after this effect resolves. Normal summon one Arcana Force monster from your hand. You can only use each effect of Arcana Reading once per turn. The first thing we need to look at when discussing this card is the fact that this card is way too high risk to play if Light Barrier is not already on the field. The Arcana Force archetype doesn't have any cards that help get Light Barrier onto the field quicker, so that's already a big problem. Considering the fact that if you get heads on this card, you can add any coin tossing card from your deck to your hand, and ironically, Light Barrier does have a coin toss effect, but if it's not already on the field, then it's already a high risk, because if you get tails, your opponent can add any card from their deck to their hand. That includes hand traps, combo extenders, disruptive cards, whereas if they restricted this a little bit more, maybe if your opponent could only get a continuous trap card, then this would have been a better option, or a level 7 or higher monster. Since not everyone plays level 7 or higher monsters and not everyone plays trap cards, I think this would have been a better way to make sure that even if you don't get the result that you want, that your opponent isn't gaining too much of an advantage most of the time. The second effect, on the other hand, is actually a good effect, since you can banish it to get another Arcana monster onto the field, and the Arcana cards don't have ways to get multiple monsters onto the field in one turn, so I think that is at least a good effect. And the biggest problem with them is that most of them don't have any effects outside of their own gimmick. They're very similar to Mothtronic monsters, where they had attack position effects and defense position effects, but later on they released newer support cards like Mothtronic Smartphone that had the ability to special summon itself from the hand, and it was a tuner monster, and its attack position effect allowed you to special summon a monster from the top of your deck. So it was a extender, and it helped to maybe go into synchro plays, which basically just improved the overall usage of this deck. It also reminds me of Xyz monsters, as back when they first released, most of them had detaching effects and nothing else. So if they ran out of Xyz material, they were basically not useful on the field anymore. Whereas when they released newer cards, some of them had detaching effects and other effects. So when they ran out of Xyz material, they were still useful as monsters, and this was before you could just link them away when you were done using them. Of course, there are a few anime exclusive cards that was used by Sartorius that has never seen the light of day, so maybe in the near future we'll get some TCG or OCG versions of these cards. One such example is Knight of Pentacles, and in the background of it you can see the Pentacle of Ace. Pentacle of Ace is basically another coin tossing effect that if you get heads, you can draw a card and gain 500 life points. Otherwise your opponent will get that bonuses. And I figured, since Knight of Pentacles is related to the Arcana cards but is not one itself, maybe it could just be a general support card for all coin tossing cards. It had a coin tossing effect, so I made my own version, but that effect is still on the card. So in this version, what it does is, if it's summoned, you can add one spell or trap card with a coin tossing effect from your deck to your hand, and if you do, you toss a coin. Now the first thing that this does is ensure that you will get a spell or trap card with a coin tossing effect, and the coin toss effect is maybe just a bonus. So if you get heads, this card cannot be destroyed by battle. Tails, it can't declare an attack, and if it's targeted for an attack, it is destroyed. Once per turn, the first spell or trap card that activates a coin tossing effect's result is treated as heads. you can only activate one card with that card's name per turn. Now this of course makes the deck a little better, since it's no longer just a gambling strategy that you're going with, since you are now making sure that the first coin tossing spell or trap that you activate will land on heads. So Cup of Ace becomes an immediate draw 2, but then you can't activate another Cup of Ace for that turn. That's just to make sure that you don't maybe break the effect somehow, and I think that's a decent way to make some new coin tossing support. Of course, there are other archetypes or decks that use coin tossing effects, so I think Knight of Pentacles will fit right in with those cards as well. And there are of course other cards that were in the anime that have not been released. Another such example is Ace of Sword, which in the anime allowed you to target one monster on the field and then inflict damage to either yourself or the opponent equal to that monster's attack based on whether you got heads or tails. But of course this is a unnecessary gamble. Why would you maybe want to inflict damage to your opponent if that's the only effect on the card? So I made a different version of this card in which the effect goes as follows. You send one face-up monster on the field to the graveyard that's non-targeting, and if you do, you toss a coin. Now what that does is ensure that regardless of what the coin toss is, you still get to send a monster from the field to the graveyard. So if it's heads, you inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's attack. Tails, you take the damage. And I think that is the direction that we should be moving with coin tossing effects, to make sure that regardless of what is happening, one of the effects still happen. So by sending the monster to the graveyard, your opponent is losing something, and you maybe get the bonus of inflicting damage to them. But if you take the damage, your opponent isn't gaining any advantage, and you're not being restricted in any manner. So I think if we make more cards like this, it might actually be worth playing, because now you're getting rid of a monster and maybe getting a bonus, and that might give people the incentive to play such cards. When looking at Light Barrier, we can see that it has an effect that allows you to choose which effect to apply for Arcana Force monsters without tossing a coin. And most of the time you're going to be choosing heads, except for the Arcana Force X monsters who have both good heads and tails effects. There was one monster in the anime that had a good tails effect, and that was Arcana Force 12, the Hanged Man, as its tails effect allowed you to destroy one face-up monster your opponent controls and inflict damage to them equal to its attack. Of course, if you get heads, you'd have to destroy one of your own monsters instead, which is obviously a problem. And since these cards haven't been released yet, I would actually love to see some of these anime exclusive cards come to the TCG OCG, but if they do, they will need effects that don't only rely on the gimmick. And the biggest problem with the Light Barrier effect, the way it works, is that some of the cards specifically need you to toss a coin, like Reversal of Fate and Arcana Calling. That basically means that if you use Light Barrier, then these cards won't apply or work on any Arcana Force monsters, since you didn't actually toss the coin. So I actually thought it would have been better if this card treated the coin toss as whatever you wanted it to be. Basically, if they created a card like Malefic Territory that maybe added a Arcana Force monster or Light Barrier from your deck to your hand, and changed how Light Barrier works so that when you toss a coin, you treat the result as what you want it to be. That way, other cards that rely on your result will be applicable. And I honestly think that if they created a continuous spell card that did this, and even had a coin tossing effect as well, for example, one that if you get heads allowed you to special summon an Arcana Force monster from your deck, but if you get tails, you can just have an extra normal summon for a Arcana Force monster from your hand that turn. Then you'd be moving into the right direction with this deck, since what you're doing now is ensuring that whether you get heads or tails, the effect is still decent. It's just that the heads effect will be better, but you're not actually losing out in a sense. And until they start making effects like that where you get a bonus regardless of what you get, I don't think anyone's going to be playing Arcana Force cards anytime soon. But that's my opinion on this. Guys, please tell me down below what you guys think of this new card and the archetype in general. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe, and then I'll talk to you guys later.